It is the London game. Obviously, Jacksonville in London back-to-back weeks. Buffalo coming across as the home team. Is this a get-right week for the Jacksonville offense? I feel like I've said that the last 3 weeks on the trot, but maybe this is the week.
I don't know about that. I think this Buffalo team bringing an awful lot of quarterback pressure. We saw them get pressure on Tua last week. Von Miller's supposed to be healthy and ready to play. He's made the trip with his teammates. So they're bringing pressure without having to blitz, which is always noteworthy. I think what we've seen from the Jags is that we talked about in the offseason, we had Josh Norris on the channel who also talked about how the Jags needed to be more explosive this year. And they're bottom 5 in big plays with only 17. That's an area which we needed to see more of. And I'm not sure that's suddenly going to change against Buffalo, who did a reasonable job of keeping the Dolphins in check last week. In terms of how I would play this game, Zay Jones is returning to practice. It will be interesting to see how that affects Christian Kirk, because we've seen him play far more over the last couple of weeks without Zay Jones. It feels like when the Jags are in situations where they need 3 wide receivers on the field more often, when they don't have a lead, then Christian Kirk is going to be out there plenty. With Zay Jones being out, Evan Ingram has been fine. He's had 5 more receptions in each game this year. But the Bills, they're very good against the tight end position. They've allowed the second fewest points to the tight end position so far. So it's tricky. I mean, Travis Etienne, he's getting the workload, but it's not turning into good points because the Jags aren't scoring lots of points. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, the Bills lead the league in percentage of drives to result in a score with 57%. Stephon Diggs is the wide receiver 5 with like over 23 points per game, which is fantastic. So it's a lot easier on the Bills side in terms of going, okay, well, we'll start James Cook. We'll start Stephon Diggs. You can probably start Gabe Davis at a push. I don't think this Jags defense is anything you really need to worry about too much. But on the Jags side of things, I mean, people are panicking about Calvin Ridley. He is the wide receiver 37. Christian Kirk's the wide receiver 26 ahead of him. We were both high on Calvin Ridley, but you were high as well. Do you have much hope that Calvin Ridley can get right?
Yeah, I think that if you watch the games, it's been small margins that have meant that he's missed out on a couple of big plays. The thing that concerned me last week was the target volume, and such a high percentage going to Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley just getting basically the scraps was a concern. I do think that Christian Kirk is more of the man beater and Ridley is more of the zone. And we've seen that over the first kind of couple of weeks where Christian Kirk basically feasts against teams that run a lot of man. Buffalo traditionally are a zone defense. They've obviously lost Tre'Davious White from last week. I think this could be a really good week for Calvin Ridley. One question I have for you, though, Tom. We've seen Dawson Knox is banged up yet again. Last week was the first week this season that Dalton Kincaid has run more routes than Dawson Knox. Do you think that we could finally see the Dalton Kincaid that we'd hoped to see week 1, that it feels like it's coming? Do you think it could be here?
I think that's what it's going to take, isn't it? It's going to take Dawson Knox not being on the field for the vast majority of snaps in order to see Dalton Kincaid get enough snaps to the point where he can be particularly relevant. But so far, what we've seen hasn't been the true wide receiver at tight end position that was advertised. We've not seen him getting downfield. It's just been like a low A dot stuff. He's been close to the line of scrimmage. And they're using him. He is like Cole Beasley. It's that Cole Beasley role for the Bills where you need a player to get there on pure volume. So, yeah, if Dawson Knox doesn't start, Dalton Kincaid will be startable in pretty much all formats. I'd be completely fine with that.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week, didn't we? That I think his blocking needs to improve before we can consider him a true matchup.